Welcome to Warehouse Automation Matters. I'm your host, Mary Hart, and I'm here today with Austin Feagins, Senior Director of Customer Solutions at Staci Americas, to discuss how to prepare for peak season. Austin, thanks for joining me today.
Mary, thank you so much for having me on. How are you doing?
I am great, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful today. Absolutely no complaints.
Great. So, can you start by telling us a bit about your role and company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start a little bit with the role and want to talk about day to day for me, but more so for the company and for the business, what I'm looking to do. It's a fun role, is probably the best way to say it. To be honest, I'm kind of the bridge between operations, engineering, finance, IT, client success, business development. So I don't want to say this role is a middleman role, but it's a role where I really get to go in and find the fun things to do and the important things to do for the business to keep us moving forward, right? So getting to look for technologies, implementing those technologies, partnering across the company itself and the business is the majority of what I'm doing here. A little bit about Staci Americas. So we are the US arm of Staci UK. So we're a global third party provider, but what we try to focus on is a personalized approach at the client level. So we're not treating ourselves as a big box 3PL, even though we have a large footprint. We really try and customize solutions where we can for clients, but at the same time, we want to use all of our experience and all of our technology for as many clients as possible, not just to benefit us, but especially to benefit them. So we've got a lot of experience across the board, globally and in the US.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Austin. Can you also tell me how long you've been involved in the warehousing industry and what drew you to this field in the first place?
Yeah, so it's actually been right at a decade now that I've been, I'm going to say in the professional side of the industry, but the career side is probably the best way to put it. I probably, like a lot of people that are going to listen to this and that have found their way into the industry, started out doing this in between high school and college. My hometown had a grocery store chain that had a distribution center there. Summer job for me ended up being order selectors, working in the produce warehouse, the freezer warehouse, dry goods. Fast forward to college, I was able to intern, see some of the corporate side, the finance side of it. Really fell in love with probably how fast paced and exciting the business is more than anything. For me, it was I'm not walking into the same office every day dealing with the same problems, and it was something else that would keep me entertained. Is probably the nicest way to put it. But also, it's job security, right? It's a field that's always going to be around, and I had the pleasure of seeing it early. I studied that in school, found my way into third party logistics, moseyed out of the grocery sector for the time being was probably the best way to put it, but ended up in third party and have loved it ever since. We get to do a lot of fun things and see a lot of fun things.
I love to hear that. It sounds like it's a very entertaining and secure industry, which is also great and helpful, especially in this day and age. Can you tell me what are some of the biggest challenges you face at Stasi Americas during the peak season?
Oh, absolutely. The first one I'm going to lead off with that you're going to hear that you've heard that everybody in the industry, around the industry knows is labor. More specifically, I don't think the problem that we see is getting labor in the building. It's being able to utilize that labor effectively, right? A lot of time, especially when you're using temporary staffing, which most third parties, most companies have to do around peak, you really have to think about how you're going to train those associates so that they can be productive, knowing they might not be there the next day, right? The goal is to say, hey, we want to bring you on temporarily. We want to make sure you come back day to day to day, eventually, maybe convert you to a full time. But at the end of the day, somebody may show up and this job may not be for them. And so the biggest challenge is how do we help the labor produce what we need them to, but make it a comfortable work environment for them so they continue coming back? It's not just, hey, can we get labor in the building? It's not as difficult as everyone says to find labor. It's a matter of finding labor that can be useful.
What about the influx of orders in inventory? How does that affect your warehouse operations during peak
Oh
season?
goodness! So the operations team, when it comes to peak season, are saints. Those ladies and gentlemen are dealing with the same SLAs normally that they would have on, let's say, a Friday, when typically in the business volume dwindles before the weekend. They're going to have the exact same SLA with two, three, four, five times the amount of orders. Orders are the word that a lot of people use, but lines and eaches are also critical here because during peak season, one of the biggest things we see are that people are buying more things on the same order, which just means more work on the back end, right? The operations group is having to balance more work with temporary labor and trying to fulfill those in the same time frames because at the end of the day the clients want them in the same time frame or maybe even faster, right? It's holiday season. People want their goods so they can give them as gifts, so they can buy them, get the discount, whatever it may be. And so those teams and the ops teams are really, I don't want to say stressed, it's probably not the right word, but they're stretched in terms of managing new personnel, fulfilling more orders than normal, and dealing with the day to day that they still have to perform, in their regular job function.
So, as stretched as the operations team is in the warehouse in general during peak, what strategies do you put in place to prepare for that?
So the most important, and I'm going to highlight this probably over and over and over as we talk, is planning ahead of time for peak. And what I mean by planning is figuring out what peak is going to look like. How much labor are you going to need? What do we think inventory is going to look like in the warehouses? How do we prepare the operations for that, right? I call it, you asked for a strategy, but the strategy is really just preparation. It's a matter of going in and we need to model how much volume, what does that volume look like? How are we going to perform and how did we perform? Where did we see bottlenecks from a previous peak season? Where have we seen it from other clients? And then piecing all of that together to put a plan in place to say, hey, let's prepare, let's move, let's change, let's design and implement for the upcoming season. It all rolls in together. There's not, I can't tell you there's one good strategy other than imagining what is going to occur so that you can be prepared for it.
So, you mentioned planning ahead of time. How far in advance do you plan for peak season?
Preferably, if I am able to, and if the business is able to, the day we are coming through the current peak is the day that we need to start preparing for the upcoming, right? Obviously, the earlier you can, the better. Some people will say a year, 2 years in advance. That's wonderful, but until you're in the middle of peak, you don't know how you're going to perform in peak, right? You have a good idea, but for me, it's the day we come out, we finish our orders, we stay caught up, the dust settles, is the day we all come back together and say what worked well, what didn't. So the moment we come through that big slurry, we're going to be problem shooting, but we want to turn around immediately and say, okay, how do we prevent this? How do we improve this?
So, it sounds like you are already preparing for this peak season and have been since, say, January or so.
Yeah. So we've for some of the clients we've been preparing since right after Black Friday.
Oh,
Some
wow.
of the
Okay.
clients don't have a New Year's and a Christmas and a holiday push, so the Black Friday Thanksgiving might be their busiest. So we're looking in December, January, February. We're still modifying some of those plans for clients. We've got plans in place for all of them, but as forecasts develop, as things change, we're constantly modifying. But yeah, December, January, even November for some of these clients, we're trying to get prepared for the next year.
So, what types of technologies and automation tools do you use to handle the increased demand during peak season, knowing that you're bringing in temporary workers as well to help?
Oh, so I'm going to say the most simple that we can find, but in reality, that's not representative, right? We use a lot of pick to light technology. It's very very straightforward for associates coming in. It works really well in certain circumstances for clients, right? An associate can come in, see a light, they see a number, they know how many to pick. It's that simple. You wave your hand in front of it. We use voice picking as well as another one that I like to highlight. For more, I'm going to say advanced or high speed picking, we're able to use different softwares with headsets so the associates hear where they need to go. They're not having to look visually, they're just hearing it. They can hear the next pick ahead. So as they're completing a pick and confirming it, they're already moving physically to the next. We're using label sortation, print and apply, all sorts of different things to help prep for it. But then Probably one of the most fun ones that I like to talk about is, I'm going to say goods to person, but robotic automation, right? So moving product for people to and from people so that they don't have to move it themselves. That's probably the number one that we have started to expand on over the previous couple of years, with Stasi. And then that's what we're going to continue to look for in the future, right? The things we can scale and the things that displace those job functions. So again, a little bit of everything. Some of it's technology that's been around. Some of it's not been around so long, but is growing very rapidly. But we try and use everything in front of us.
That works out well. And how do these tools overall help you streamline your operations and improve efficiency during peak?
That's a good question. So the number one thing that people usually go to is reducing
Mhm.
labor, cutting heads, reducing labor. That's not always the case with most of these technologies. We don't go in looking to reduce headcount necessarily, right? We don't need to just reduce the people that are in the building to produce effectively. We try and use these technologies to come in and say, hey, how can we displace job functions that humans don't need to do? That you or I, you and I are probably very good at packing out very complex things, right? A robot probably isn't good at that. Robots are very, very good, for example, at moving things around the warehouse. And so, because a human can focus on things they're good at, it allows productivity to increase, right? The more efficient the human can be, and the more monotonous tasks we can give to automation, the better, right? We're going to see improvements in throughput. We're going to see improvements in quality as well. The less things we have to think about, the better we do normally.
So you mentioned that people usually speak about reducing labor when they bring on tools like this. Did your employees, the associates, have that fear when you brought on the automation systems?
Oh, absolutely. At the start, we came in pretty early, explaining what the technology was. You're always going to have onesie twosies, right? So I would say overall, we didn't have much of a concern. As soon as they realized, oh, now I don't have to walk. For example, I don't have to walk 10 miles a day in the warehouse. I can now stay in 3 aisles, and I can get more work done, which means my productivity is better. Which means I may get paid more, or I may get promoted eventually, so on and so forth. Most of the associates saw it that way. The onesie twosies, as soon as we explained it to them and they got to see it with their eyes and put their hands on it, realized, hey, we want these technologies to displace things that you probably don't like doing anyways. So I say a mixed bag. 99% of it was positive. It's just a matter of bringing that information to people ahead of time. I think we'll probably touch on that later, because I like to talk about how people like to know what's going on. But yeah, overall, good thoughts all the way around with technologies.
Wonderful. And do you have any fun stories about the employees and how they feel about working with the automated systems now?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to say one of the technologies we use, goods to person robotics, right? With Locus Technologies, gamification is something that I think every third party dreams of in their day to day business, right? How do you make it so that people get excited about what they're doing and can compete? Again, friendly competition is pretty typically a good thing, especially in our space. But what we really like to do is we can see down to the associate level how fast they are picking, how many orders they've picked, how far they've walked compared to other associates, and you get a really good view of how people are performing. For me and for a lot of that teams, we can host, I don't want to say competitions, but you can host competitions to see how people are performing, because it's an equal playing field, right? Just because somebody picks less orders, maybe they pick those orders faster than somebody who picked more orders, or maybe it's the other way around. So we really like to look and see how are people doing, and it makes it a lot more fun when we go to implement, when we put these technologies in. Reporting can get really, really dull, and it can be even more dull for people that are doing the work. And so how do we focus on making that fun is probably the best example.
Regarding the temporary workers that come in, how do they feel about working with the automated systems, and what kind of training and support do you provide to those temporary workers to ensure they're comfortable and efficient in using the various technologies?
So the key to that is keeping training simple, right? Ideally, perfect world, I would love to teach somebody in under 30 seconds how they're going to do their job for the day. We know it's going to take more time than that, but from the moment they walk in the door, we don't want to just berate somebody with SOPs. We like to bring them in, have them work with the picker for X amount of time so they understand the process. And we can walk them through formal SOPs depending on the technology, but at the end of the day, it's much easier to bring an associate in and show them a very basic guide, have them work with someone for a short amount of time, and then sign off saying, "Hey, I understand this." And the simpler we can do that, the better it will be for them, right? Not just productive for the business, but easier for them to come in and say, okay, I understand, I know what I need to do every day, rather than having that ambiguity of, oh, well, I'm not really sure how to do this or what I'm doing. So we can get really, really in depth with the training, but ideally we try and find technologies that, hey, you come in, you go to this location, either the robot tells you what to do, or you look at this light, or there's going to be a voice that tells you where to pick, or direct as much of that as we can to keep it simple for associates, right? That's the goal. I would say that's the number one in terms of training. How can we do it quickly, but then how do we be effective with it?
And what measures do you take to maintain or help keep morale high and productivity among your staff during peak season?
Gamification is probably the biggest from morale. Friendly competition, right?
Mhm.
Everyone likes to be incentivized by money and by things. So we're trying to figure out prizes. Are there competitions? Are there incentives? Whether it be dollars, whether it be food, whether it be maybe an extra break, PTO, whatever it is. We're doing a lot of the things that the industry is doing to stay competitive. But what makes it more fun is when you can have people compete. So that's probably one of the differentiators is, and we really try to say, hey, we want to see who's performing. There's always the minimum level, right? We want everybody to perform 100%, but those people going above and beyond, if everyone sees, hey, they're getting something extra for working that hard and for producing that well, we really try and make that visible so people see it and they feel like, oh, this is a good thing for us.
Can you describe the impact of automation and the technologies that you have on your warehouse during peak season? Any specific success stories?
Oh, it's night and day across the board. It is night and day in terms of being able to scale, being able to manage volume, reducing stress on the operations. We see improvement across all those categories. But one of the examples I want to highlight is with Locus Robotics. We have a very large clothing company. They've got thousands and thousands of SKUs. Their volume doubles, triples, and can possibly quadruple during peak season. They're shipping incredible volumes with many different products and many lines and many eaches all across the nation, and we're fulfilling that out of a location in the Northeast. We've got some pretty heavily automated conveyance and voice picking in that building. But what we have run into and what we ran into really last year is we're unable to fulfill over a certain amount other than adding hours to the shift. And at the end of the day, there's only 24 hours in a day. So unless you're investing significant dollars in capital and physical large equipment, you can only produce so much. You can eliminate bottlenecks for years and years and years, but at the end of the day, you might not hit where you need to be. And we actually partner with Locust to come in and say, hey, we want to segment some of these orders onto a different piece of technology and use two technologies side by side on the same client in the same building to hit peak. And that was one of the first years that we have produced on SLA as required by that client every day during peak. We've had massive success with that. We're looking to implement that across other facilities, other clients, other sites. But the ability to come in and say, okay, I can spin up more technology or less technology side by side with what I have that is bolted to the ground that I can't expand. It's night and day for us from the operation side to the IT side, all the way around. It just eases tensions, is probably the best way to put it. And it keeps the clients happy, right? Their orders are going out on time.
You mentioned that other sites you're thinking of implementing the technologies at. Are
Mhm.
there any lessons or tips that you have learned from the current automation and processes that you have for peak that are being utilized at the other sites, even without automation?
Oh, absolutely. I would say what we're seeing is gain a thorough understanding of where you want the business to go and how you want to be able to handle clients as you implement these technologies. What I mean by that is you don't have to dive headfirst into automation, but a lot of businesses don't feel comfortable jumping, headfirst into it, say putting in tons of robots or spending millions of dollars on capital to get automation in. But uh, businesses need to start thinking about where they want to be and how they plan to fulfill. And technology is going to be a part of the future, right? It's a part of the future of 20 years ago in the industry. Different pieces of it. Some are used today, some aren't. But the big piece is think about where you want the business to go and start, I'm going to say, dabbling in it. You don't have to jump in maybe with robotics all the way. Maybe you can find RF technologies that benefit you. Maybe it's something as simple as better scanning technologies in the warehouses. Maybe it's more advanced conveyance. But the sooner you can start trying to phase in small pieces of it and see the benefits, you'll very easily see, to your point, at other facilities where that could become useful as well. And you have a better picture of, okay, rather than put this in for one client in one building and it only handles that, oh, wow, we could really use this in a totally separate building with 50 other clients and see some benefits there. A lot of words to say that the onus, I'll say, is try and start looking at it early. And you don't have to jump all the way in. All the vendors that I've ever worked with, in my personal experience, are very open to, hey, you don't have to jump in with the biggest solution and the best solution in the world. You can find a middle ground as you look to this.
You mentioned the future. What emerging trends or technologies in warehouse automation have you heard about that you're most excited about for future peak seasons or in general?
So some of the ones we've played with that have been around, I'll say, in proof of concept and are really just now hitting the market. One of them that's interesting is container unloading, autonomous container unloading. I really like to see pallet movement that's autonomous. Some of our vendors have already started doing that, which is great. And I don't mean wire guided. I don't mean tape on the floor. I mean robots such as the Locust Vector that can move themselves around, move around blockages. They know where they need to be, but they can manipulate around things to move larger products. But from an emerging tech, one of the most interesting things I've seen lately are robotics that are actually picking each units, but that are mobile robots. So I'm really excited to see where that's going to go. I've seen a couple vendors come out with what I'm going to call pilots of that. Some of them are a little bit clunky, some of them are a little maybe too futuristic, but that one for me puts a big smile on my face when you actually see a robot that can drive itself to a location, open a box, and maybe pick an item out of that box. Typically, a human is going to be faster at that, and that's why we like to use other pieces of technology. But robotics is going to be a big piece of it. Anything that can move itself through the warehouse is where my eyes are going to be for the future. Drone technology is also a big one. We've been working with a vendor for a while now to help us manage our inventory without having to have someone do it for us in terms of send somebody out to look at things. So excited to see improvements there, but a lot of exciting stuff. This industry never seems to stop with improvements across the board.
It really doesn't. You're right. There's always something new. You mentioned a bit about this when talking about the other sites that you have. What advice would you give to the listeners who are just starting to integrate or thinking about integrating automation in preparation for peak season or in general?
Oh, ask now. Start reaching out to these vendors. I've been in the 3PL space for right at a decade now, and the worst thing you can do is not ask and not start learning early. Again, I'm going to say preparedness and planning over and over and over and over. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are hesitant to reach out to vendors and ask. They don't want to deal with maybe it's sales, maybe they don't want to be sold something they don't need. But all these companies reach out, ask how they can help. Most of them are going to come in and try and show you how they can help, and it's not going to cost your business an arm and a leg to learn how to do these things or to see what may be beneficial. So start early and ask. Reach out, look at resources, listen. This podcast is a good example. Hey, find out what other key players in the industry are doing to be successful, and then start to, Google it, call these companies, fill out the forms online. There's a lot of things to be learned. That's the biggest pieces. starting to look and see, and then talking with the pros in their space.
So I think I know what the answer to this is going to be, but what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember about preparing for peak season in general?
And plan some more. Think about not just what can go wrong, but what can go right and how to make it go right. Think about how, if you're going to put in automation, we all know, even with the best vendors in the world, there are going to be setbacks, whether it be contracting, whether it be supply delays, maybe it's internal approvals. There's always going to be something that could throw a wrench in it. So as you plan, as you prepare, really think about as many factors that can, I'm going to say derail it, but can push it, and just try and be prepared to handle those in terms of, hey, build in the buffer so you're not running up to the wire. We've all been there. We've all done it. We've all been at the mercy of clients sometimes, whether it be clients or internal. We've all pushed it to the wire. Try and avoid that. The earlier you can start, the better.
Wonderful. Thank you again, Austin, for joining me today. It was a great discussion, and I hope you have a fantastic peak season, as I know you will. And
Absolutely. No, thanks so much for having me on, and look forward to the next time.
thank you. And thanks, as always, as well to our listeners. We're here to help you move what matters in your warehouse.